If I asked you who runs the world, what would you say? The President of the United States? The Chairman of the Federal Reserve? A tech oligarch like Elon Musk? Freemasonry? You might be wrong. The people you see on TV, the people you vote for, and the people you tweet at, they are puppets. They are the front-facing managers of a system owned by someone else. There is a single company that sits above them all. A company that owns the controlling stake in the banks where you keep your money. A company that owns the media networks that tell you what to think. A company that owns the energy giants that heat your home and the pharmaceutical giants that medicate your children. A company that manages $10 trillion in assets. To put that number in perspective, that is more than the GDP of every country on Earth, except the United States and China. If this company were a country, it would be the third largest superpower on the planet. Its name is BlackRock.
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 BlackRock announcing its...
And its CEO, Larry Fink, has more power than any elected official in human history. But BlackRock isn't just an asset manager. They don't just pick stocks. They are the architects of a new economic operating system through a secret artificial intelligence technology called Aladdin. They control the flow of money in the global economy. They decide which industries live and which industries die. And through a social engineering framework called ESG, they are bypassing democracy to enforce a radical agenda on your life without passing a single law. Let me take you inside the shadow monarch. I am going to show you the AI brain that runs the global market, the extortion scheme they use to control corporations, and their terrifying plan to turn you from a citizen into a subscription serf. The monopoly, the illusion of choice. To understand how they conquered the world without firing a shot, we have to look at the board. Capitalism is supposed to be about competition. Coke versus Pepsi, Ford versus GM, Apple versus Microsoft. You think these companies are fighting each other for your business, but what if I told you that the competition is fake? Let's do a simple exercise. Let's look at the shareholders. Who owns Coca-Cola? The top institutional shareholders are BlackRock, Vanguard, and State Street. Who owns Pepsi? The top institutional shareholders are BlackRock, Vanguard, and State Street. Look at Big Tech. Who is the top owner of Apple? BlackRock and Vanguard. Who is the top owner of Microsoft? BlackRock and Vanguard. Banks, JP Morgan, Citigroup, Bank of America, they are all owned by the same people. This is not a competitive market. It is a monopoly disguised as a marketplace. BlackRock, along with Vanguard, in which BlackRock is also a major shareholder, effectively controls the S&P 500. They own a controlling block of 88% of the companies listed on the index. This gives them something more valuable than money. It gives them voting power. Every year, public companies hold shareholder meetings. They vote on CEO pay. They vote on who sits on the board of directors. They vote on company policy. If you own 10 shares of Apple, your vote is mathematically irrelevant. If you manage $10 trillion, your vote is the only one that matters. Larry Fink writes a letter to CEO every year. To the media, it sounds like a suggestion. To the CEOs, it is an order. They know that if they disobey the shadow monarch, BlackRock will vote against them at the next meeting. The CEO will be fired. The stock price will be crushed. This is why every corporation in America seems to move in perfect lockstep. Why did every company suddenly go woke in 2020? Why did every company adopt the exact same slogans at the exact same time? It wasn't a cultural shift, it was a mandate from the owner. The brain, Aladdin. But this raises a question. How does one company manage $10 trillion? How do they track thousands of companies, currencies, and bonds across 100 different countries? A human brain cannot comprehend that much data. Even an army of analysts couldn't do it. They don't use humans. They use a computer. In 1988, Larry Fink built a piece of software. He called it Aladdin. It stands for Asset, Liability, Debt, and Derivative Investment Network. Originally, it was just a sophisticated calculator to check bond risks. Today, it is the central nervous system of the global economy. Aladdin is an artificial intelligence that has no equal. It monitors every single trade, every bond yield, every currency shift, and every geopolitical event in real time, 24 hours a day. It performs over 200 million risk calculations every single week. It simulates thousands of disaster scenarios. It asks, what happens to the portfolio if China invades Taiwan next Tuesday? What happens if the euro collapses? What happens if a pandemic hits? And then it tells its users exactly where to move their money to survive. But here is the terrifying part. Everyone uses it. It's not just BlackRock. Vanguard uses Aladdin. State Street uses Aladdin. The top 10 insurance companies in the world use Aladdin. The largest pension funds, like the teachers and firefighters of California, use Aladdin. Even big tech giants like Apple and Alphabet use Aladdin to manage their massive corporate treasuries. And most critically, the Federal Reserve uses Aladdin. The Central Bank of the United States relies on BlackRock's software to manage the US financial system. What is the significance of this? It creates a single point of failure. In a healthy market, you have diversity. Some people buy, some people sell. Some people think the market is going up, some think it's going down. That friction creates a real price. But today, every major bank, insurer, and government entity is using the same AI model to make decisions. They have networked the entire global economy into one brain. This creates herding. If Aladdin's algorithm decides that oil is risky, everyone sells oil at the exact same second. If Aladdin decides tech is safe, everyone buys tech. The market is no longer a chaotic collection of millions of human opinions. It is a synchronized herd, steered by a single algorithm, owned by a single company. BlackRock doesn't just see the market. Through Aladdin, BlackRock is the market. The bailout, the government's boss. You might think the government would step in to stop this monopoly, but they can't, because the government works for BlackRock. We saw this in 2008. When the financial crisis hit, the US Treasury was blind. They didn't know which banks were holding toxic waste. They didn't have the data. Who did they call? They called Larry Fink. The Federal Reserve hired BlackRock to manage the bailout of Bear Stearns and AIG. The government gave BlackRock the contract to clean up the mess. Think about the conflict of interest. BlackRock owns shares in the banks. The government hired BlackRock to decide which banks to save and how much taxpayer money to pay them. They did it again in 2020. When the COVID crash happened, the Fed announced they would buy corporate bonds for the first time in history to prop up the market. Who did they hire to execute the trades? BlackRock. And what did BlackRock buy with the Fed's money? They bought BlackRock's own ETFs. It is the ultimate capture. The state and the corporation have merged. The weapon, ESG and control. Now, why does this matter to you? Okay, you might say. So a big company is rich. So what? The problem is what they are doing with that power. They are not just trying to make money. They are trying to re-engineer society. They are using their monopoly power to enforce a new system of control called ESG. Environmental, social, and governance. On the corporate website, ESG sounds nice. Who doesn't want a clean environment? Who doesn't want fair labor practices? But in practice, ESG is a corporate social credit system. It is a weaponized scoring mechanism used to force behavioral change without passing a single law. Here is BlackRock's plan. They want to force a green transition and a specific social agenda. But they know they cannot get these laws passed through Congress. The voters would say no. Energy prices would go too high, so they bypass the voters. They go directly to the boardroom. This is corporate extortion. Aladdin gathers the data. It assigns every company an ESG score. If your score is low, BlackRock initiates a punishment. They send a letter to the CEO of an oil company, or a gun manufacturer, or a retail chain. The message is simple. Comply with our ESG goals. Defund new drilling. Hire based on our diversity quotas. Support our political causes, or we will destroy you. How do they destroy them? Two ways. 1. The capital strike. BlackRock lowers the ESG score. Aladdin signals to the entire financial world that this company is high risk. Suddenly, the company's cost of borrowing skyrockets. Banks, who also use Aladdin, won't lend to them. Insurance companies won't insure them. Investors dump the stock. The company is starved of capital until it goes bankrupt or complies. This is why American oil production is stifled even when gas prices are high. The drillers can't get loans because BlackRock has shut off the tap. 2. The hostile vote. If a CEO still resists, BlackRock uses its voting shares. We saw this with ExxonMobil. Exxon wanted to drill for oil. BlackRock and an activist fund forced 3 green directors onto the board against the company's will. They staged a coup in the boardroom to force the company to stop growing. How does this affect you? Everything you hate about the modern economy can be traced back to this system. Why are your energy bills doubling? Because ESG capital strikes have choked off supply. Why are movies, marketing campaigns, and HR departments becoming increasingly radical and disconnected from reality? Because those companies care more about their ESG score than they care about you, the customer. They are not trying to sell you a product. They are trying to please Larry Fink. If they lose you as a customer, they lose revenue. If they lose BlackRock as an investor, they lose the company. The final frontier, housing. And now, they are pointing this weapon at the final frontier, housing. You have seen the headlines. Investment firms buying up neighborhoods. BlackRock and firms they fund are buying single-family homes across America. They are paying 20% to 50% over asking price. They are outbidding you. They are outbidding young families. Why? Because the goal is the Great Reset. You will own nothing and be happy. They want to turn housing into a rental subscription service. They want to be your landlord. If they own the houses, they can enforce ESG rules on how you live. Imagine a rental agreement where you are forced to use a smart thermostat that BlackRock controls. Imagine carbon limits on your energy use. Imagine if your rent is tied to your own personal compliance. Compliance is the rent you pay to live in their world. Conclusion. The Great Exit. We do not live in a capitalist democracy. We live in a technocratic feudalism, a system where elected officials are merely the PR department for the asset managers. They have centralized the world's wealth into a single computer program, Aladdin, and they are using the output of that program to strip mine the middle class and enforce a radical social agenda that you never voted for. They own the banks, they own the media, they own the politicians. And through the housing market, they are trying to own you. It sounds hopeless, but it isn't, because they have one fatal weakness. BlackRock is a parasite, and a parasite needs a host. They need your capital. They are investing your money. The $10 trillion isn't Larry Fink's money. It is your 401k. It is your pension. It is your savings. They need you to keep blindly putting your paycheck into their funds. They need you to keep buying their ETFs, IVV, SPY, EFA. They need you to stay asleep at the wheel, passively funding your own enslavement. The only way to fight the shadow monarch is to starve the beast. Take your money out. Do not give your capital to institutions that hate you. If your 401k offers a brokerage window, use it to buy individual stocks, not BlackRock ETFs. Remove your money from the megabanks that use Aladdin and put it into local credit unions. But most importantly, own assets they cannot print and cannot vote on. Own physical gold. Own Bitcoin in your own cold storage wallet. Own land in your own name. Be the glitch in Aladdin's code. The company that owns the world only owns it because we let them. It is time to revoke their permission. The Great Reset is their plan. Your plan needs to be the Great Exit. Subscribe if you are ready to walk away.